All right, before we even get into the nuts and bolts of the world's largest democracy, I've got a quick 10-second challenge for you. Take a look at the question here. Who gets to vote? Is it A, an eligible 20-year-old, B, an eligible 17-year-old, or C, anyone who's wealthy? Go ahead, make your choice.
Okay, if you guessed A, an eligible 20-year-old, you absolutely nailed it. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking the monumental scale of Indian democracy by diving into universal franchise and India's electoral system. We are going to look at exactly how a nation of over 1 billion people organizes its political voice, giving literally every eligible adult an equal say in how their government is run. It is a massive undertaking, and honestly, it's pretty fascinating. Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap. We'll be covering 5 stops today: the power of voting, choosing our representatives, guarding the process, building the parliament, and finally, the highest offices.
So, let's kick things off with Section 1, the power of voting. Your voice, your equal value.
Now, this concept right here is the philosophical core of equality in any democracy. You've probably heard the term universal adult franchise thrown around a lot in civics class, right? It sounds super academic, but let's just translate that jargon into plain English. Universal just means this right applies to all eligible citizens. Everyone gets a seat at the table. Adult simply means citizens who are 18 years or older. And franchise is just a fancy word for the right to vote. Put the whole shebang together and it means every single eligible adult citizen has the fundamental constitutional right to cast a ballot. Simple as that.
Now, what is equally fascinating and, honestly, absolutely crucial is what does not determine your right to vote. In this system, we completely strip away those traditional societal barriers. Your wealth? It absolutely does not buy you extra votes, much to the dismay of billionaires everywhere, I'm sure. Your education level? Not a factor. Gender, caste, religion, none of these give you a heavier ballot. The ballot box is, without a doubt, the ultimate great equalizer.
So the big takeaway here really boils down to this: one person, one vote, one equal value. This is the absolute heartbeat of political equality. When you think about it, your single vote carries the exact same mathematical weight, the exact same constitutional value as the vote of the richest CEO, a famous movie star, or even a top government official. That's pretty powerful stuff.
And to really appreciate this, we have to look back at just how radical this idea was at the time. Back in 1949, when the Constitution was being finalized, the founders placed immense faith in ordinary citizens. By 1950, the Republic adopted universal franchise immediately. They didn't wait around for the country to become universally wealthy or fully educated before empowering the people. At the time, on the global stage, that was a highly progressive, bold move. Fast forward to 1988, and the 61st Constitutional Amendment expanded things even further, dropping the voting age from 21 down to 18, which brought millions of young adults right into the democratic fold.
Moving right along to Section 2, choosing our representatives, from citizen to constituency.
So, we've talked about the big picture theory. Let's move to how this actually builds and see how the mechanics work. How do you go from being an everyday citizen to an active voter? Well, first, once you hit 18, you've got to get registered on the official electoral roll, because you have to be on the list to play. From there, you're assigned to a defined geographical area called a constituency, and that clears the way for you to step into the booth and finally cast a secret ballot. It's a wonderfully logical pipeline, right?
Now I actually want to pause on that very last step for a second, the secret ballot. This is essentially the protective shield of democracy. It completely protects the voter's choice by keeping it totally private from the outside world. Why does this matter so much? Well, secrecy guarantees independence. It prevents any outside pressure, intimidation, or coercion. When you step behind that cardboard screen, your choice is yours and yours alone.
Okay, so when the polls close and those secret ballots are finally counted in these direct elections, India uses a specific rule called the first-past-the-post system. Simply put, it's a system where the candidate with the highest number of votes in a given constituency wins. Now notice the phrasing here. This is key. They don't necessarily need over 50% of the total votes to win. Actually, scratch that. They just need more votes than any other single candidate on the ballot. If you cross that finish line first with the most votes, boom, you win the seat. Which brings us to Section 3, guarding the process, the Election Commission of India. So, you're probably wondering, who on earth manages this massive nationwide logistical puzzle? Well, it's the Election Commission of India, or the ECI, and they have an absolutely enormous task. This is an independent constitutional authority that supervises, directs, and controls elections across the entire country. We're talking maintaining massive electoral rolls, designing incredibly complex schedules, and strictly enforcing the rules. They are essentially the ultimate umpires on the field, blowing the whistle on foul play and ensuring the integrity, fairness, and credibility of elections for both parliament and state legislatures.
All right, let's look at Section 4, Building the Parliament, Direct and Indirect Representation.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part is how we transition to the national stage. How do all of those individual votes finally shape the country's central lawmaking bodies? Let's compare the two houses. First, you're the Lok Sabha, the House of the People. Members here are directly elected by you, the voters, using that first-past-the-post system we just talked about. They represent their specific parliamentary constituencies. But then, you have the Rajya Sabha, the Council of States, which operates completely differently. This is an indirectly elected body. They use a system of proportional representation with a single transferable vote, and the members are actually chosen by the elected members of the state legislative assemblies. So to sum it up, direct citizen voting builds the Lok Sabha, while indirect voting builds the Rajya Sabha.
Finally, Section 5, the highest offices, electing the president and vice president.
So we've hit the very top of our macro scale here to look at how the absolute highest offices in the land are filled. And as you'll see, these top offices are also filled through indirect elections. The President of India is elected by a special electoral college made up of elected members of parliament and members of legislative assemblies. Meanwhile, the Vice President is elected by members of both houses of parliament. Now you might be thinking, wait a minute, I didn't vote for them on my ballot. But the reality is, you actually do participate. Citizens participate through their elected representatives. That original vote you cast all the way down at the local level, that's the fuel that powers this entire constitutional electoral college at the very top.
So bringing this all back home, why does universal adult franchise actually strengthen democracy in the first place? Well, think about it. It broadens participation by bringing in voices from literally all societal backgrounds. It promotes true baseline political equality. It secures fair regional representation across so many different diverse communities. And honestly, perhaps most importantly, it forces the government to remain accountable to you. Democracy is so much more than just the mechanical, everyday act of having an election. It's about inclusive, informed participation. It's about holding power accountable to the people.
So, I want to leave you with this final thought. Now that you know the massive, intricate machinery that has been built solely to protect your single, equal vote, are you going to use it? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning, keep learning, and remember, your voice is the literal engine of the democracy. Catch you next time.